Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we look at Ed's Vampire Triple Feature. October continues, and I hate to give credit to Matthew for anything, but man, the weather is very Halloweenish outside right now. It's just wonderful. And so this week we're going to look at Ed's Vampire Triple Feature. Ed is my new movie buddy at the bar I frequent on a regular basis. Ed's a really big movie guy. Ed helps me find some older movies that I may have missed, which I understand that's hard for you to imagine since, as you can tell, I know everything about every movie ever. He suggested these 3 vampire movies that he liked when he was a young man. They are very much of the time that they were made in. It's going to be 2 Hammer movies and 1 not Hammer movie. That's really, really interesting. But they are very much vampire movies of the 50s, Technicolor wonders and a black and white one. So our menu is going to include the Horror of Dracula, the Brides of Dracula, and Curse of the Undead. The Horror of Dracula was Hammer's first big Dracula movie, and it's got everything you're looking for. Christopher Lee as Dracula, Peter Cushing as Dr. Van Helsing. Really lush, lavish set pieces, great costumes, Technicolor everywhere. Michael Gough plays Arthur Homewood. There's good atmosphere and tension. It's just not that great of a movie. It's like the movie runs something like 85 minutes long, and you could tell they were really stretching the story out as much as possible, which is weird because it is based on the original Bram Stoker novel. The title of the movie in England was just Dracula, but when they moved it over to America, they had to call it The Horror of Dracula because, fun fact, the Bela Lugosi Dracula was still running in various parts of the country, so they didn't want any confusion. But despite it being very loosely based on the original Dracula book, there's just not a lot going on in it. It's strange. I don't understand why they went the route they did. I mean, I can see them wanting to make the movie their own, but it's virtually a silent picture. There's so little dialogue, and what they lack in dialogue, I guess the director thought we will make up for in showing people going from this place to that place, because there's just a lot of no words being exchanged, but I am going from this room to that room, I am doing this to that. It's one of the signature motifs of a not great movie that you would see on Mystery Science Theater. Just like, and now we're off to this place. But despite all that, it's very pretty to watch, and it's got Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, who are just great. Like, Peter Cushing, you can see him sort of still tweaking the Sherlock Holmes character into Van Helsing with just the stern crusader against the darkness that is trying to kill innocents in England. Or not England, because it's, I guess it's supposed to be Germany? It's, they take, one of the liberties they take is there's no Transylvania and there's no England in the movie. It's just everybody is all in the same country. All the locations are within a couple hours of each other. The weird thing, though, is that, this is the first Christopher Lee Dracula movie, so I was very excited about that, because it's Christopher Lee, it's Dracula, I've never seen it, and he is imposing. That guy, he looks like he's 8 feet tall in these shots, and he's got, the super-duper bloodshot eyes and the fangs, and he's just Christopher Lee, and it's just great. He has 13 lines of dialogue in the whole movie within the first half hour. He only ever talks to Jonathan Harker, who in this one is a librarian, not a real estate agent, and is there specifically to kill Dracula because he's already teamed up with Van Helsing. He shows up under the guise of working for Dracula, and Dracula talks to him, and that's about it. And then for the rest of the movie, you barely see Dracula in it. It's sort of like the shark in Jaws protocol, where it's the less you see of them, the more scared you get of them. Except it doesn't exactly work in here because there's very little actual tension to any of the scenes. It's just Van Helsing will tell Arthur, it's okay, we're going to do this, and then they do that. And, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of really great action pieces. Peter Cushing is really good in stage fights, and the final chase to get Dracula is pretty great, and then the makeup effects when Dracula dies is really something, but it's kind of a wash. There's enough to want to watch it again, but I would not put this in one of my favorite vampire movies. The Brides of Dracula. Well, spoiler alert, but I can think of two things wrong with that title. I can't really fault them because the fiancé of some vampire you've never heard of, not as punchy a title. So it's continuing off of the Horror of Dracula somewhat, with Peter Cushing still trying to stop vampires in nondescript mid-European countries. This one just surrounds the Baron and Baroness Meinster, because the Baroness is hiding her son, the rightful Baron, who is also a vampire, who contracted vampirism through vague, undefined things. He was a wild party guy and got in with the wrong crowd, and then, blood sucking. We follow Marianne, a ditheringly stupid teacher, on her way to a young woman's academy, but her coach and everything gets intercepted by maybe the forces of the Baron, but maybe not. Either way, she ends up at the Baron and Baroness's castle for the night, and she gets wooed by the Baron and lets him out, and now all of a sudden people are dying again and rising from the grave. Luckily, Van Helsing was already on his way there because the local priest thought there was something up. You can see Hammer Productions making improvements on their vampire formula. There's a bunch more action, a lot more characters, a lot more dialogue, and bigger stakes. More people are being attacked and turned into vampires. And even Van Helsing gets bit at one point and has to, figure out a way to unvampire himself before it's too late, which that gets pretty exciting. There's no Dracula. There's just the Baron Meinster is the vampire, and he's got like the same makeup effects, but without Christopher Lee, it sort of doesn't work as well. They had approached Christopher Lee about reprising his role as Dracula, but he said no. He would, of course, change his mind over the years, but his absence is noticeable because it's Hammer, it's Dracula. Where is Christopher Lee? Peter Cushing, always good. He's just always like, I'm here to do the job, and I'm going to get the job done. And again, very much more action-oriented than I would have thought, mainly because I've seen movies more from later in Peter Cushing's career, but he's still a fairly young man, and he's just in it to win it. It's so good. And plus we get the first inklings of one of the Hammer staples, the babes. We have a lot of pretty women becoming vampires in this movie and trying to continue the will of their master. So while neither the Horror nor the Brides of Dracula would be my favorites, you do see improvement as they're going along, so that's kind of fun. Finally, we have The Curse of the Undead. This movie was really good. I was very pleasantly surprised with this one because this is a Western vampire. And there's just a lot of plot and a lot of characters, and all of it is surprisingly good. Like, don't get me wrong, a bunch of the performances are, dated. It feels very much a 50s Western / horror movie, but it holds up surprisingly well, mainly because it's a real story. So, like, for the first half hour of the movie, it's all about these land issues between, like, this family wants that family's land and going back and forth, and people are, fighting, and the sheriff has to calm everybody down, and it's a very stereotypical Western movie. But in the background of this, young women are dying of mysterious circumstances, and then when the patriarch of one of the feuding families dies under mysterious circumstances, it heightens the tension between the two groups. And it gets even worse when we have a shootout and the son of the patriarch dies, and so all that's left is the sister of the innocent, the nicer family, and she hires hired gun to take out the head of the bad ranch. And the hired gun turns out to be a vampire. He turns out to be a vampire that was originally living on the good family's ranch. We get so much conflict around that as like mysterious things are happening. Like we get these shootouts with Drake Roby, who is unstoppable despite people having shot him first. He doesn't go down. It's because he's a vampire. And it's up to Preacher Dan, who has the hots for the sister of the good ranch family, to put the pieces together and then stop him, because he discovers all these old records that prove that Drake Roby is actually Drago Robles, the son of the original owner of the ranch for the good family. His brother steals his wife and then he kills his brother, and then kills himself, and as a result is cursed with vampirism. He's never actually bitten. It's looking at the vampirism as a curse, and so the people he bites don't really rise up because he's not spreading it. He's just, he needs blood to live. They managed to have all of the motifs of a horror movie while simultaneously having all the motifs of a Western movie, because we have like the good versus evil, and murders, and crosses crosses stop vampires, and sunlight hurts vampires. Like it hurts them, but it doesn't kill them. While at the same time having all of the Western motifs in it, because like the whole thing comes down to a shootout. It's just, Preacher Dan has a miniature cross made out of wood that was found at the site of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So, I mean, we've got to end the movie somehow. But we end it with a shootout, which is cool. And I really I love this one just because I'm a big fan of Western vampire movies. I did the one triple feature for it, and I can really see this as something of a precursor to a movie like From Dusk Till Dawn, where you have like the movie feels like one thing for a while and then it switches gears, but continues to work within the framework of that original genre. So I was very pleasantly surprised and really love this Curse of the Undead movie, which is in its entirety on YouTube, so you can watch it for free. And much like all the other movies on this triple feature, is maybe 85 minutes long. These were Ed's vampire movies from when he was a young man, and I'll see you next week as October continues.